And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Millpark Business School's virtual auditorium for our webinar, ChatGPT and AI. Our creations have become creators. And as the world is poised on the cusp of a new technological era with the arrival of OpenAI's ChatGPT, my view is that we urgently need to talk about its benefits, the potential risks, the consequences of it for humanity. And today, our esteemed guest will navigate us through the hype and the promise of AI, ChatGPT, chatbots, and the like. So, by way of introduction, I am Prof Johan Steyn, the Dean of Millpark Business School, and joining us today is the acclaimed Johan Steyn, human-centered artificial intelligence advocate and thought leader. Now, friends and colleagues, Johan was recognized by Swiss Cognitive as one of the top 50 global voices on AI. And he's a research fellow at the School of Data Science and Computational Thinking at Stellenbosch University and an Adjunct Professor at the School of Business at Woxsen University in India. A few other things, he's a weekly columnist for Business Day, regularly contributes to FinWeek, News 24, IT Web, Sunday Times, and the Brainstorm magazine, and the list goes on. But go check out Johan's profile on LinkedIn to get to know him better. But enough from me. Johan, thank you so much for your valuable time today. And without any further ado, I am handing the stage and the microphone over to you, sir.
Thank you. Quibus, thank you so much. And Handley and to your team for arranging this. Thank you for that warm welcome. Everyone, we've got quite a large audience, and it just shows you again that this generative AI ChatGPT topic is a hot topic, and I don't think it will stop being a hot topic for the foreseeable future. So I'm going to share a number of slides with you where I want to talk you through what this technology is. We're going to talk about some of the ethical considerations. What does it mean for content creation, for human ingenuity or creativity? Are the robots really taking over, or how limited is this technology? And then at some stage, I'd love to just demo this to you. I was such a skeptic in the beginning, and now I'm a total evangelist. When I speak with people and say, do you know about ChatGPT? And they say no, it's almost like I want to slap them around and say, where have you been? And especially if they haven't used it yet. And how to use it is also a bit of a skill, the keywords you use, the prompts that you give it. But I use it every day, not to copy and paste, but to ask it to help me with some ideas, to do some of the what I call heavy lifting. But it will never replace my experience and my views and my opinion. But it will help me just construct an article or a business plan or a slide layout. I will often have to tweak it. As I say, I just don't copy and paste it, but it's such a powerful tool. So let me quickly just share the screen and take you through some of the slides. Hopefully toward the end, we will have some time for questions and answers, but I think we will also have an opportunity on social media following the event over the next day or two to look at some of the questions. Quibus, I just want to quickly ask you and make sure that you see my full screen being presented.
100%, Johan, can see clearly. Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. This is based on an article I wrote about 2 years ago for Business Day, where I said AI is our creation, which is technology, is becoming a creator. It's the first time in our history that the things we create can also create itself, albeit limited still. And that's the topic of today. And there you can just see my website address, and like Quibus said, you can find my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my email, etc. But it is a fascinating topic. And to what extent can technology create and think and reason like humans do? Let me just, here's a little sleepy animal. And again, in case you were sleeping, if you don't know what ChatGPT is, if you haven't used it, and this is not just hype. I'm very careful of AI hype because I've seen so much of it, but this is real stuff. This is incredibly powerful. And I want to start off with just a video. What I've done is I've taken just the last week and a half's headlines. I've put it in a little video. I've put some audio with it. It's a few seconds. I want to start with that video before we get into the talk. How's that last one? The wolf is at the door. And like with all of these modern advances in technology, to what extent do we embrace it, use it ethically, responsibly? And to what extent should we really worry about it? Is it going to take over? Are the robots coming for our jobs? What about the societal impact? What about ethics and philosophy? So just to maybe give you a bit of a confession, even though I've been working in this AI field for some years, I was somewhat blissfully unaware of ChatGPT. I don't know why. And in December, my good friend Michael Avery, who is a financial journalist, we've done a number of recordings with Business Day TV. We've done a number of events together. And one of his many gigs is on Classic FM. And in December, he said to me he would love to do like an 8-minute interview on me on ChatGPT, particularly how it relates to healthcare. And like I've always done, is I said yes, because there's very few things I can't figure out. I remember back 2 or 3 years, maybe more ago, somebody invited me to speak about chatbots at a conference. I didn't know too much about it. I said yes. I researched it. I applied common sense, which we often don't do with technology. I tried to really think how it will impact and apply to business. So I said yes to Michael, and we had I think quite a wonderful recording, but it forced me to really look into this technology. And initially I was quite skeptic. And my first article for Business Day around that time was titled ChatGPT, the robots are not ready to take over the world. Because, and you know what OpenAI did so smartly by releasing it to the public, what does machine learning need? It needs massive data sets, massive interaction to learn. In the beginning, it was factually incorrect. It couldn't translate languages. It took way too long. And as many of you who are using the free version will see, especially this time of the day when the US is really using it, it keeps on hanging. It keeps on giving you errors on the system is too busy, re-log in and so forth. I then signed up for the $20 a month version because I thought I could really use this. And apart from one snag yesterday over the last 2 months, it's always available, always online. It transcribes incredibly fast. But that's where it started for me. Only in December, I really started looking into it. And I thought over the last 7 or so years that I've been working in this field of AI and consulting and AI and automation strategy, I really have never seen something so promising and so powerful. And that's what I'd like to explain to you today. Just briefly, what we're going to go through today is what is generative AI? Why will it forever change the world? Why this particular platform from OpenAI took the world by storm. Then again, love to demo it, hopefully show you a few new tricks on how to use it. Important ethically and from an education point of view, and given that this is a university event, you know, what is the role of plagiarism? What's the role of learning? Would universities or even secondary and tertiary education need, over the next few years, have to totally pivot the way we train people if technology can give us such a way to just cheat and not learn? And then I would like to talk about ChatGPT 4, which we expect to come out over the next month or two. And I think, we're currently in this era of what we call artificial narrow intelligence. It's fairly narrow, it's fairly limited. It is powerful, but it's not much smarter than most humans. But when we get to the next phase, artificial general intelligence, it will surpass us in our ability to reason and think. And we are then on the way of potentially consciousness, sentience, super intelligence. And what will that mean for the future of humanity? And then toward the end, just the conclusion, let's see what questions we can take. So why will this change the world? Why is it changing the world? Is it just hype? Because there's been so many hype cycles in technology, so many hype cycles in artificial intelligence. We are now at a place where AI, given the billions and billions of data sets that's available to it, is becoming super smart. Even ChatGPT, the current version, which is GPT 3.5, is only based on data from 2021 and earlier. So you'll see if you ask ChatGPT very recent information, it struggles a bit. But the general things we ask it for, it is really very good. So when it comes to our ability to create, our ability to think, it is going to have a massive impact. There's a wonderful article in The Atlantic in 2008, and I can't remember the author now, but the title is Google Making Us Stupid? And this person then wrote a few follow-up books, and I often referenced it because, I was very good in math, but I haven't used calculation for years now, because not only can I type it into my laptop or my phone, I just speak it to Siri or to my Google Home or Alexa device. If you ask me what's 235 minus 73, I used to be able to do it like that. I struggle now. The question is that a skill that I simply just don't need to use anymore because technology can do it for me? What about language? I don't need to necessarily learn different languages because AI can help me on the fly translate, and I'll show you that today. So it almost comes down to, what does it mean to be human? Because we are the only species on Earth who are creators. I mean, if I take this blank piece of paper and I just very randomly scribble on it, there's a statistically very good chance that that exact dimensions of what I've scribbled has never been done before. If you write an article, original article, if you create a poem, if you create a piece of artwork, visual artwork, it's something that's never been done before. That's what makes us unique. Not only do we remember the past, which a lot of mammals do, is a bit of a fight or flight thing, but we are unique in imagining the future, being aware of the future. That's why we create, that's why we build businesses, that's why we write books, that's why we plan for our families and for our future and for retirement. But if all of those capabilities that makes us uniquely Homo sapien will be automatable, where will it leave us? And it's just very disputable, but about 50 or so thousand years ago, Homo sapiens got the overhand over the Neanderthals. And I don't know about you, but if I look at my family, I think the Neanderthals are still around, and they will most likely say the same about me. But it was an evolutionary shift. Homo sapiens, because of our brain development, the neocortex and so forth, even though we were physically weaker animals or beings than Neanderthals, we basically took over the world. And if you read philosophers like Yuval Noah Harari in Sapiens and Homo Deus, and if you read Nick Bostrom from Oxford in Superintelligence and others, we are now at the precipice of another species entering the Earth. But this time we are creating that species, which is a hominoid, Homo sapien, the brain-computer interface, which is already a reality. More and more of our body parts becoming artificial and 3D printable and so forth. What will happen to human consciousness when we are super intelligent beings? So I think generative AI and platforms like ChatGPT is just the start of changing our world forever. Do we utilize this technology for the good, or do we unfortunately not regulate it, which is largely the case, and it takes over and we can no longer control it? That is something we should grapple with for a long, long time, although time is not on our side. So let's quickly look at why ChatGPT took the world by storm. And look at this graph. It was the fastest adapted technology in the history of the world. Only, I think, in the first 5 days, it reached 1 million users. And in the first month or so, 100 million users. It really took the world by storm, faster than any of these other technologies you've seen here. And they were, again, very smart in opening it up to the public so that they could use those machine learning experiences from all these millions of users to better their platform. I don't even know where they are from a user base at the moment, but if later on when I talk about what Microsoft is investing in them, what their market value is, what their anticipated revenue is for the next year, they are massive. You can't believe the company that's only a few years old and that's only released this platform toward the latter end of last year is growing so rapidly. It has really taken the world by storm. Now, I want to talk briefly on parameters. It's the way we measure these platforms. Now, let me just quickly read this. It's the values that the model learns from training, which determine how the model generates new text based on its input. So, in layman's terms, the amount of parameters that these generative platforms use is essentially its reach. How much data can it ingest and process at the same time? Obviously, the greater the amount of parameters, the faster it is, the more accurate it is, and the more transformative it will become. So look at this graph quickly. These are just some natural language processing pre-trained models. And you can see there on the left, it's parameter size in millions. And if we go all the way to the right, the Turing natural language generation model had 17 billion parameters. Let me unhide. ChatGPT, 175 billion parameters. So just think of the computing power behind this platform. I mean, look at the exponential growth there. And toward the end, I'm going to show you where we expect GPT-4 to be, which is like leaving everyone here on the screen in the dust. So the computing power, the ability to process massive amounts of information, exponential. Wikipedia, which is maybe one of the largest language data sets in the world, forms only about 1.6% of the data that GPT is using. That's incredible. Now, the challenge with using all of this data on the internet is that it's unregulated. And I'll talk about that a little bit because the biases, whether it's gender, race, or otherwise, is clear in some of these models. And I've seen that companies like Google and ChatGPT and Microsoft and others have been doing a lot to make sure that these biases don't come through these language sets. And there's certain questions, and even in my demo in a few minutes now, where a day or two ago, it answered my question. And then yesterday, when I was just quickly going through it again, it said, I can't, these are biased, these are not ethical questions. So let's see if Mirth is on our side today. A few stats about ChatGPT. It launched November of last year, so that's very recent. 100 million users, as I've said, in January. No idea where they are now, but you can imagine where that exponential graph is going. Microsoft invested $10 billion into this company. Why? And we're going to touch on that. $10 billion. Incredible. It's currently valued at $29 billion. Now, in the face of the Googles and the Apples of the world that are trillion-dollar plus companies, it is not that big yet, although I would love to own a $29 billion company. But again, think of where that graph is going. Will OpenAI, and especially in partnership with Microsoft, overtake the market valuation of the Googles and the Apples of the world? I think very likely in the next 2 or so years. Revenue for the next year or so, or up until 2024, $1 billion. Again, not massive compared to the other big players, but for a company that was only founded very recently, for a company that only in November released their Star platform, to reach $1 billion of revenue at the end of next year, it's incredible. So something is happening. If this was just a fluke, if this was just hype, there's no way that Microsoft would invest $10 billion. There's no way that the market would respond like this. And here's the battle at the moment. think of searching a Google search. Now, I have honestly never used Microsoft Bing. I'm a Mac user. I recently bought this Windows laptop that I'm using right now. And obviously the default search engine was Bing. I couldn't wait to uninstall it. It's nonsense. I wanted Google. When you do a web search, you don't get the answer to your question. You get a list of the most probable websites where you can find the answer to your question. And those algorithms are quite accurate. But you're still giving me homework. You're not answering my question. If I say, what is the weather like in Pretoria tomorrow? It sends me to weather.co.za or weather.com or news24 or whatever. I still have to click on the link and still go have to figure it out. Where generative pre-trained models are going to play a role, and in this Microsoft Bing and ChatGPT collaboration, and I'll show you a screen of what that looks like in a few seconds, we will still get the typical search results, but we will also get the generative AI to actually answer our question. Now, the challenge for Google is that about 60% of their revenue comes from advertising in Google search. And they are a formidable firm. I mean, for my business, whether it's Gmail, Google Docs, the Google Drive, and all the other associated technologies, that's the only things I use. They are incredible. They will not just close their doors and go down, but if I can use Bing, Microsoft's Bing, to quickly get the answer, and in Google, I can only find links to some of the answers. And if Google's 2/3 of their revenue comes from advertising and search, what will happen to them? We saw in the news that they called a so-called code red executive meeting of the last few weeks. I call it their national state of disaster. Because, and this is the question, will the disruptors, like Google were for many years, will the disruptors be disrupted? Have they become so used to their success and their trillions of dollars that they stopped innovating as they should have? And they made a massive mistake recently in demoing their own generative model, which I'll show shortly. And in fact, here it is. So they call it Bard. This is their competitor to ChatGPT. And they made a mistake. If you followed the news, I think it was 2 weeks ago in a live demo launch event, and it instantly cost them $100 billion of their market value of Alphabet, the holding company of Google. So in this live demo, this was the question: what new discoveries from the James Webb Space Telescope can I tell my 9-year-old about? And the answer it gave is that the James Webb Telescope took the first pictures of a planet outside of our own solar system, which was scientifically and factually incorrect. Now, you might look at this and go, so what? The point is, ChatGPT wouldn't make this mistake. Google, the largest internet technology company in the world, in the launch of their competitor Bard, could not get it right. To a large extent, they've been slow in rolling this out. They've had a lot of ethical bias kind of concerns, which is wise. But this was such just a sling of mud in their face. And it just lifted this massive, almost never seen before competition between Microsoft and Google. So let's quickly look at what Bing will look like. Now, if you go to Bing, you can, they give you the option to sign up for the new version, and then you're on a waiting list. I'm still on the waiting list. A lot of people I know for some reason have been accepted. I can't wait. But what you will see in Bing is something like on this screen. If you search for something, again, on the left, it says a search about the Super Bowl. You get your typical search results. On the right, you actually get it generating the most probable and relevant answer for your question. Imagine how much time that will save. Imagine if you can take some of the capabilities of ChatGPT that I'll show you shortly, and you bring it into a browser. So again, we're moving from search to chat, or from search to answers. Don't give me a homework, Google. Don't give me the websites where I might find it so I can go look if I can find it. Just give me the answer. And that's just where Microsoft is going to keep on investing billions of dollars. It is going to infuse their whole product set. Google's going to compete. A lot of the other companies are going to compete. So this arms race is very interesting. It will hopefully keep on benefiting us as consumers retail consumers or individual consumers and business consumers. So for interest's sake, this week, or well, you can buy it already, but the new edition of the Time magazine has this cover. Can you imagine that ChatGPT is on the cover of Time magazine? It used to be Einstein and Marilyn Monroe and Nelson Mandela. Now a typical chat in ChatGPT is on the screen, and it's here where I'm going to just quickly go to this this spreadsheet. So this is just a very random spreadsheet. I looked for a sheet that doesn't contain any specific human identifiable in violation of privacy regulation website. This is a very random website. It's none of this is the names and surnames related to the company and the ethnicity, their age, and so forth. It's just very random. But I want to show you, and on the other screen, I've got a few pre-prepared questions I want to ask ChatGPT. So firstly, let me show you this. And some of you might be very advanced users in ChatGPT, and I might bore you. But so I'm just going to copy this data set. Now, this original sheet had about 1,000 lines. And when I put that in ChatGPT, it kicked me out and said just too much data. It again shows you how limited it still is. I hadn't enough time to play through the variables to whether it's 500 lines or 200 lines or whatever. But let's just use this 26 lines and see what it can do. And let me go to my browser. Here we go. Whoops. Okay, here's ChatGPT. All I'm going to do is I'm going to literally just paste that into ChatGPT, and let's see what it says. Is there anything specific you would like to do with it, this information? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this in here. I'm going to say, give me an analysis of the data. Let's see what it says. So now it starts summarizing. Now imagine doing this in Excel, building the graph or the model to assess this data. Now imagine you could put in that 1,000 lines or 10 or 100,000 lines, and we're going to get there. So it just gives me a summary, the job departments, the ethnicity, how many employees, the gender divide, and so forth, the hire date versus salary. I'm going to let it stop generating. Now I'm going to say, write me, now look at this, write me a 600-word article on the above. See what it does. Okay, there it starts building my 600-word article. I'm just going to let it run for a little bit. And some of these prompts, you have to be specific what you ask it. For instance, if you use the word expert, if you say write an expert article or an academic article, you get a lot more elaborate information than just saying write an article. You should say, so for instance, write an expert article on the above. Keep in mind X, Y, Z. This is for a academic audience or a high school audience, and so forth and so forth. So sometimes I put in about a paragraph's worth of prompts to really get what I need. So I'm going to stop it here. Now let's hope Murphy works with me. Write the above in Chinese. Let's see. And then we're going to use Google Translate to verify it. Now you can see it's taking a bit longer because this is now difficult to process. Let's give it a bit of time. And remember, it's that time of the day where everyone in the US is using it. There we go. There we go. Cool. Okay. Let me stop it. Let's take this one paragraph. No idea what it's saying. Let's go to Google Translate. We will immediately pick up that it's Chinese. Translate in real time to English. There we go. Look how accurate that is. Okay, now let's use another really weird alphabet. And say, let's write this in Hebrew. From right to left. So it won't write it like that in here, but you'll see now when we go to Google Translate. Here's the Hebrew. Struggling a bit. Weird alphabet. Let's give it a second or two. There we go. You see it's writing it from the other way around. Okay. Stop it. Let's quickly see if it's, oopsie, there we go. Let's see what Google Translate says. Oops. Oh, for heaven's sakes, I need to do this again. Okay, it's translating the Hebrew correctly. Now, let me ask the following question based on that data set. Which Excel formulas can be used to analyze point 3? Now, I can't remember, or let me just say to analyze the sheet. And even if you make spelling mistakes, unless your spelling is horrible, which mine sometimes is, it even kind of ignores the spelling mistakes and it still processes the answers quite correctly. So here's some ideas on which Excel formulas I can use to analyze that sheet. Okay. Now it's going to become fun. Okay, let's stop it there. So let me ask this question. Provide a summary in a humorous fashion. 27 employees who have a wide range of job titles come from various departments and cities who are all unique in their own way. It seems like the company is all about diversity and inclusion, but let's not forget the real question here. Who's getting paid the most? Well, and so forth and so forth. So now it's bringing in a bit of humor. Okay, now it's going to get interesting. Let's ask it to give me an answer in Afrikaans. Now look at that. Okay, let's ask it for Zulu, because often we've got about 3,000 languages in Africa, or dialects, and the language sets are hugely underrepresented in most of these kind of chatbots, conversational AI platforms that we're using. Now, I don't speak Zulu, but Google Translate will help me, and I would assume many of our delegates are Zulu speaking. So let's just make sure there's a period. Okay, so let's see what Google Translate says. That's not what I wanted to copy. Let's try again. There we go. Now, and I hope you find this interesting. We've got a few more minutes and then I'm going to go back to my slide. So, provide a summary in the style of Shakespeare. Verily, in this set of data, we find tidings of 27 workers in sundry positions with each. Now, look at that. So you can really screw around with this. It's so much fun, but think of the business and the academic applications potentially. Write it as a poem. Now look how it rhymes. With this data set lies a tale of 27 workers without fail, each with a job and a department of its own and a story to tell like the seed that it's sown. Okay, let's ask it to explain it in a way a child will understand. See, now it's simplified it. Look at that. There are more girls than boys. Okay, let's do a sport presenter. And it looks like a sports commentator, doesn't it? The other day, it said in the red corner we have male employees, in the left corner we have female employees, and it talks about this battle, this boxing battle. Now the next one, it sometimes allows and sometimes not. Now I say provide a summary in the style of a delusional person. Now look at this. This data set holds the secrets of the universe. Okay, that's delusional. Okay, keep on going. We're almost done. Okay, now there's an error. Now let's quickly. This sometimes happens. Thank you, America, for being awake. Let's go back. And you'll see here on the left, every time you provide a specific instruction, it starts listing it here. And it's good to, from a contextual point of view, if you want to keep on asking it questions on the conversation you've been having, go back to that conversation because it's got the historical data of what you've been asking, etc. Don't just start a new chat. Don't go to a previous chat. Try and go back to that exact same chat so that it's got the context of what you've already asked it. Now, let's see if it's going to work now. Provide a summary in the style of a narcissist. Finally, something worthy of my attention. Look at how selfish this is. Well, it did suggest I make a few hires, so I suppose I can take some credit for that. Okay, I've got one last one, and then I'm going to show you some coding examples. Okay, let's do this as a wrapper. Look at that. Okay, my last example. Okay, so you can see there's a rap song. So let's just start a new chat. I'm going to ask it to write a unit test case in Java. There we go. It's busy writing it. You'll see now. There we go. So we've already read, and some of you might actually be programmers or coders. And again, it's not perfect, but how you can evaluate your code, give suggestions, rewrite code, and so forth. So now I'm going to ask it to rewrite the same code in Mocha, which is a JavaScript testing framework. Okay, now it's going to produce the code in that framework, Mocha. There we go. Now I'm going to ask it for Chai, which is a library set for, oh no, don't do this now. Okay, almost done, because I do want to show you Python. Coders will hopefully love this and not fear being replaced. So library for JavaScript, there we go. And then lastly, one of the most powerful and fairly easy to learn platforms is Python. So now I'm going to just ask, write that same unit test case in Python. And then lastly, something that Kobus will like, I think. Let me stop that, go to new, and say, tell me about Millpark Business School in the format of a presentation outline. So now it gives me the idea for what my slide deck should look like. And you know what I use often is I take, and obviously I don't just copy and paste it, I'll chop and change it, but I paste this into Word, then I make it, level 1, level 2, level 3 in the outline format, and then you can save that file, you can import it into Excel, and it builds the whole slide deck for you, essentially. So now it just gives me the slide outline. What was what point 1? It's a brief history of Millpark Business School. And Kobus, you're going to have to tell me how correct this is. Write the summary of point 1, which is the brief history. Now see, it's actually not writing the history. It's writing what I should write about the history. Let me regenerate that response. It's still the same. So you see the limitations. Let's ask it this. When was the start of Millpark Business School? 197, Kobus. I don't know how correct that is. We can chat about that now. Okay, so let me stop here. Let me go back to my slides. Yes, sir. Kobus, is it correct?
It is correct, Johan. It is correct. 1997. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Okay, so what I want to do now in the few minutes that we have left before we get to Q&A, ChatGPT is one of a host of generative tools out there. It's maybe one of the most powerful, given the OpenAI and especially the Microsoft involvement. But there are a number, and these slides will be available. I think Handy said she will share the PDF version, or it will be downloadable at some link. But have a look at some of these, and that I've played with and used. Now, Compose.ai is fairly similar to ChatGPT. And you get even like Grammarly, which is becoming more and more intuitive, and other tools. It really helps you with idea generation, of actually compiling your argument, of compiling the storyline and flow of your argument, and actually writing the content for you. It's a Google Chrome extension, very powerful, really worth playing with. very much like ChatGPT. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Pictory is so incredible. If you import a Zoom or Teams or any other webinar recording, it will actually give you the important points of what's been discussed in that webinar. Imagine you have a video or an audio recording, although I don't know if Pictory does audio, we'll get to audio soon, of an hour-long academic presentation or a press release or something like that. And you say, I don't have time to listen to this whole thing. Just tell me in 10 points what they were talking about. Pictory can do that. And one of the amazing things that they can do is these sales videos. So you've got a number of preset videos of men or women and different races and so forth. And when a client goes onto your website and they maybe add one or two products to their checkout bin, but they don't conclude the transaction, they get an email of this person in the video. So there's a link, you click on it, and because they have your name and your surname and some of your detail, in real time, this video and this person who is a real person, or looks like a real person, actually say, hi Quibus, I hope you're well. I saw you just went to our website to buy tennis shoes, etc., etc. You didn't conclude it. Did you get stuck? Is there anything we can help? So it's fascinating, these videos that it can generate in real time, hyper-personalized to the clients on your website. Runway is very fascinating, and it's actually quite a suite of tools, especially for video or images. If you have an image where, you know, maybe I did just a pre-recording or something, and there was a piece of furniture here in the corner that I want to remove. It's click and drag on this platform, it removes it. It creates a green screen, it creates any background, it changes anything in the background in real time that you want to change. If it's an airplane that's flying over a city and you want to make that airplane a bird, you just bring in a picture of a bird, it removes the airplane and changes it to a bird. So think from a marketing and a content creation point of view, what you can do, even though the audio file cleanups, even changing the voice. And this is almost at the edge of deep fakes even. Can I do a webinar recording and I change it to Quibus's voice? You know, how does that stand up in a court of law? Think of this, because the case law for this technology is non-existent across the world. If I present proof that Quibus did something in an audio or video file, but it might be a deep fake, which is so accurate these days, how do you disprove that? Very interesting one. This is one of my favorites, Tome. It uses ChatGPT technology, and it uses DALL-E, which is OpenAI's text-to-image generation. If I say, create a PowerPoint presentation about the future of AI in education, it will actually start building the whole slide deck. It will actually start populating the storyline of each slide, and then it will bring from the DALL-E data set images on each slide that's most relevant to that topic, and it does it in seconds. And then you can tweak it a little bit, but if you are lazy like I am, and if you want to build a really arty looking, and there are different themes, more business related, more art related, and so forth, if you want to build it as a PowerPoint or a presentation in seconds, Tome is it. Again, it's generative AI. It generates, it creates from data sets, but to some extent from scratch. This one I would love to test, Legalese the Quarter. So imagine if you have a 200-page legal contract or a 50-page non-disclosure agreement. You import it into this platform, and it will give you a summary of the main points, what to look for, etc. The one thing I am doubtful about is the geographical application. You know, we've got in our country, like in many other countries, very specific laws governing certain things. And will it pick up on that? Will it be smart enough to pick up specific things on, for instance, not just privacy, but POPIA? If it sees the name POPIA, which is a South African privacy legislation, will it recognize it? I haven't played with it yet, but imagine what this could do to help lawyers or even replace them. Could be very interesting. There are maybe 300 or 400 of these platforms I can show you. The way they can use us to do the heavy lifting, to do the work we should never have been doing, to use rather our experience and our insights and our specific knowledge on a client or a specific use case. The work that is essentially an intern should have done is what these platforms should do. Now before we end off in a few minutes and then have some questions, let's talk about GPT-4. So strictly speaking, ChatGPT is version GPT-4 3.5. There's a lot of buzz about when OpenAI will be releasing version 4. And even Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, downplays this a lot because I think they're scared of maybe disappointing the market. But there is a lot of suspicion of what GTP4 will be able to do. And I'm going to come back to that perimeter discussion shortly to show you how this will be better. So at the moment, in fact, here we are. Okay, and then I'll get to the next one. So remember, 175 billion parameters on ChatGPT 3. A trillion parameters are expected in GTP4. So there's no space on my screen for that graph increase. Imagine if GTP 3.5 is as powerful, yet not perfect, as I've just showed you, as you've seen in maybe playing around with it, using it for your own idea generation, content generation. Imagine what a trillion parameters can do. Imagine the speed, imagine the reach. It'll hopefully no longer be limited to 2021 and prior. It would, with that kind of parameter count, it should be relevant to the internet news of today. And imagine what you can then do. Now, it increases our problem of plagiarism with research. And we're going to touch on that shortly. So multimodal. So currently in GTP technology, we use text. Some of the platforms I just showed you use some other inputs, but what we think ChatGPT4 will do is the ability to process audio, imagery, and videos. Again, imagine I say, here's an MP3 file of a song. Rewrite the English lyrics in Zulu, or rewrite it as a poem, or take these 5 songs and combine them as one big song. Again, what you can do with images, manipulating images. Again, here's a video of an hour-long talk. Please write a 10-point PowerPoint slide on it. Create the PowerPoint slide for me in effect. And then transcribe the audio and create and release a podcast on my behalf. Trillion parameters. Imagine what this technology can do. Now, there's the really important stuff. The ethical considerations around this kind of technology for education, but for society as a whole. Are we creating a world that is, we're already talking about, or a lot of people are talking about, a post-truth society? You know, the internet was the bastion of truth in the beginning, where for hundreds of years, thousands of years, our challenge as humans was accessing knowledge. Only a small percentage of people could read. Very few people could buy a book or go to a library. Our challenge now is not accessing information, it's what to do with all the information. And in this world of post-truth or fake news or whatever you want to call it, in a world where our social media algorithms learn what will keep us hooked to them, in other words, expounding on our biases, keep on showing us the news feeds that make us feel, see, I told you, that race, that gender, that nation, 5G causing COVID, for goodness sakes. So we live in a world, and now exponentially more so with generative artificial intelligence. So what world will my 9-year-old son, Aiden, live in when he's an adult? Can he trust any information that's coming his way? This onslaught of different opinions, nation states, this China, America fight for dominance over the world, but over their own citizenry, using and abusing privacy regulations to actually hyper-personalize their control over me. Their engineering consent, which is one of the best, I think, definitions of democracy, is the engineering of consent. So as funky and as geeky and as amazing as this tech is, as amazing as the use cases are, the societal impact is potentially disastrous. The ability to do social engineering, to do hacking, to contact you in an email in a kind of language that is exactly the kind of language you will trust, based on generative pre-trained models. It's big security, internet security firms, cybersecurity firms already building platforms to fight against that. From a university point of view, this is such an interesting topic because, and here's my view, we're on this boat and it's going down the stream rapidly. You jump off and you drown, or you go with it where this boat is going. Now, do we do, which a lot of high schools and universities across the world have done, is to block this technology? But I don't even know how you can block it. Yes, maybe if it's my company or my university issued laptop, I still have another computer at home. I still have a smartphone. And there are a number of plagiarism checkers already created. Even ChatGPT created their own plagiarism detector, which is so faulty. And I've seen it in the news, but what I've done is I've taken one of my business day articles that I know I have created from start to finish originally, and I put it into some of these platforms, and it picked up to 95% of plagiarism. Because obviously the things I write and say have been said by someone somewhere. I mean, none of us have 100% original ideas. We learn, we listen, we read, we process it, we add our view to it. So, it's not like you create electricity from scratch. So even these plagiarism platforms are inaccurate. Now, what do we do in educating people? And I think this is what's happening. I think the whole way of educating people, especially from a tertiary point of view, is going to go through a massive change. It has to. One of the problems we have, one of the big problems, for a lot of people, if they go to university for, say, 2 or 3 years, firstly, as we know, and this is not a new problem, when you're 18, I don't think you should be able to make a career decision, because what do you know? I can't even imagine what the dropout rate is for first-year students in most universities, because, okay, becoming a lawyer is not LA lawyer like the TV. I hate this Latin stuff, I think actually going for work experience for a few years first before you decide what to study, if studying at all, I think that's a good thing. That's what I'd love my son to do. I think we're going to pivot to a world where we will do a lot more practical, short, call it craftsmanship kind of courses, building up to a career, rather than a 3 or 4 year degree, which costs an arm and a leg. And by the time you're done, you're most likely irrelevant already by the pace the world is changing. And this is not true for all careers. Of course, I want my doctor to go to university, my surgeon. Of course, I want other very important careers to be tertiary educated, have master's and doctorate degrees. But I think that unless the global world of universities, if I can call it that, goes through a massive change over the next 5 years, they will become completely irrelevant, especially at what we have to pay for education. But yeah, I'll leave it there for now before I open too many cans of worms. So we're almost at the end now. Look at some of these news headlines. The CEO behind ChatGPT says schools need to get over their cheating fears. Some experts agree. And let me just read this and I'll give you another quote. In Business Day, ChatGPT 2 will show teachers a text written by AI. As I've just said, doesn't work. A generative AI has a dirty secret, and this is a talk by itself. The carbon footprint of computers, the increase of computing power we need for a generative AI world will destroy our environment. The data centers we need, the heat we are creating, the energy we're going to be using, and that's the dirty secret of this technology. Great article on Wired if you want to Google it. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, who many of you might know, I love watching this video, the famous physicist, he said in a podcast recording recently that, talking about ChatGPT from an academic point of view, he said the reason students cheat in the exams is because institutions value grades more than students value learning. Institutions value grades more than students value learning. We've all done it, whether it's internal compliance training or a short course you're doing, or even when I did my degree. If you're just a little bit smart and you know how, you can wing a lot of exams. And with that, I'm not saying a dissertation or things like that, but I think for a lot of undergraduate work, let alone high school work, you can wing the heck out of it because you don't value the learning. The learning is boring for most people. And institutions want you to pass. That's their main focus, which we understand. So that's the conclusion. We've got about 7 or so minutes left, and then I have to jump on another webinar. Again, there's my URL. I'm going to stop sharing. And I don't know if there are maybe 1 or 2 questions that we can address or comments.
Sure, absolutely, Johan. Wow, most definitely, you have shifted perspectives of many people this afternoon. So we've achieved that objective. But there's a whole lot of questions, and I don't think we're going to have time for them all. But let's tackle it from the top. The first question by Robin Kutsia would love to know how the CA community is integrating AI to ensure the qualification remains relevant in the modern working place. Do you perhaps have a comment on that one, Johan?
Yes. So I assume he means chartered accountants. And I worked for a very large audit firm up until a year ago. If there's one industry that is going to be massively disrupted, I think it's law and accounting. Because and I'll get to hopefully answering the question now, because think of this, the basic business model of an accounting firm or a law firm is billing as many hours as possible, is putting as many auditors on an audit as possible at 2,000, 3,000 Rand an hour. And if most of what they are doing can be, not everything, but most can be automated, how will that billing model have to change by audit and law firms and others? So I think the way that chartered accountants can use this kind of technology in an audit, because remember, what does AI technology do? It looks for patterns, it looks for outliers, it looks for things that humans can't see. I mean, there's even companies in South Africa that I work with who can ingest 10 million documents into a platform and give you an audit opinion, look at patterns, etc. So I think, and hopefully that answers the question, I think we will have to train CAs and other knowledge workers how to use this technology a lot more in the way we're training them.
Awesome. John, thanks. The next one from Tsepo. Semiconductors followed Moore's law. Is there a theory that seeks to predict improvement on AI? So there's a bit of a theoretical question. Have you got an idea on that one?
Cool. Just for everyone, Moore's law basically says that you can only put so many transistors on a microchip. And the smaller the transistors get, the more you can put onto a microchip and the more powerful it is. But physically, it is impossible to keep on increasing just from a space constraint point of view. But now we live in an era of quantum computing, where Moore's law is to a large extent almost, I wouldn't say irrelevant, but that concern of we will hit a brick wall in how much more transistor power we can put onto a microchip. So I think, so can AI and pattern recognition help us to utilize a better way of putting more transistors on a chip? Absolutely. The same within any production line or supply chain. But we're getting to a place where I think transistors related to computing power is becoming irrelevant in the age of quantum computing.
All right. John, thanks. Let's see if we can quickly squeeze another one. We know you got to run. From Mpo, Dr. Mpo Maluleka, welcome. Great to see you here. Question: are South African insurance companies embracing AI and digitalization? Do you have a sense of that one, Johan?
Yes. Look, I think across the board, especially in financial services and insurance, pretty much all the big companies are utilizing it. To what success is questionable. I've got some of the big ones as clients, and there are days that I just shake my head and I think, what the heck are you guys doing? But again, if you think of predicting churn, predicting potential claims, looking at customer behavior, there are so many use cases. So I think most of our companies are to some extent using it. The challenge that I see is that people think it is a just install it and it will just fix everything. They don't anticipate the human need for change management and upskilling and resistance. So the technology by itself is never good enough. It should be a holistic approach, taking the whole organization on the journey with you.
Awesome. Johan, there's less than a minute and you've got to jump over. So colleagues, these questions that there still are, we will get the mechanisms to address them and answer them to you. Johan, from all of us, thank you very, very much. And all the best, and with evangelizing the realities of this world playing out around us. And we so look forward to our next engagement with you. But friends, colleagues, everyone take care, and until we meet again, keep your feet on the ground and reach for the stars. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thanks, Cobus.